join us in person will be able to join us or be able to watch the program at their own pace. Steve Boutte. Hi, Steve. I hope that you have your ears on as well. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is turn this over to Jim Simard. He is the head of the historical collections, which is part of the Alaska State Museum, and he is very much involved with the Alaska Digital Archives, which is called VILDA, so I'm going to turn it over to him and let him take over and tell us what he wants to tell us about how the Alaska Digital Archives works.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? I'm just going to talk and assume so. I would like, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Some of you I know, and actually I think most of you I don't. The Alaska's Digital Archives, the one question I'd like to try the hand-raising thing is if there are any of you who aren't familiar with the VILDA collection as a resource for primary documents. So if you'd put your hand up if you don't know the collection. But I'll tell you what I know about it, give it a little bit of a tour, and I'm going to do it without a net. I haven't prepared a PowerPoint or anything. I'm just going to rely on the internet access, which has been real reliable and seems good. Alaska's Digital Archives was named, I'm not seeing any hands going up, so I guess everybody is familiar with it. At one time, VILDA meant Virtual Library and Digital Archives. And this is the Digital Archives portion of it. It was funded through several federal grants that came through Ted Stevens' office. It's a part of, and I guess you can see my cursor, the SLED, the Statewide Library Electronic Doorway, and I'm just going to click on it just for you to see it. It's a fantastic collection of digital resources that you should all know about. Go and check it out, but I'm not going to show you anymore. But that was the virtual library portion, and this was the digital archives portion of VILDA. That just became the name of the server. It comes off of the campus in Fairbanks. It was a part of the supercomputing site at one time, and now it's been moved over into the library. So it's moved from being a grant-funded project and a collaboration between these partners here that I've got up on the screen, and it's actually become part of our programming for all of the institutions. The principal institutions are the Museum in Anchorage, Museum in Fairbanks, and the State Historical Collection. And then the other institutions, we've been able to bring in some other collections. So let me just start here.
So
and
Jim, I'm going to break in here for just a second. Leslie still can't hear, so you're going to have to speak a little bit louder, or maybe put the microphone more right in front of your mouth. And everybody else is probably going to have to turn your speakers down a little bit.
Okay, so how's that, Leslie? Are you able to hear? So I'll just move ahead and let's, oh, I'm getting some red there, so I think it's probably loud enough. In fact, I think I can, yeah, let's try that. Okay. Well, when this project first began, there was a mandate to cover two particular subject areas, and one was the movement to statehood, and I'm just going to go into that page. These, what we have going on in here are just post-coordinated searches. So if we want to look at natural resource issues, we look there at government, transportation, military, and they too turn out to be pretty wonderful collections of materials. As I say, they're just done on a predefined search, and you can find those things. The other subject area that we covered was Alaska Native history and cultures, and so these likewise will cover various topics within the Native community. And if anybody's interested in how those are collected or what the criteria is, contact me offline and I'll go over with you. There are a lot of different kinds of materials here in this collection, and those are some of them defined here. They're University of Alaska Fairbanks has a fabulous map collection, and virtually all of their rare maps are now available online. I was just going to go this far to show you one. They're really wonderful reproductions of an amazing collection of maps. The other institutions have some maps up as well, but the premier collection is from there. Moving images, the finest materials that are in here are coming from the film archives in Fairbanks, and they're in a lot of different formats on a lot of different topics. So go and check those out. And incidentally, the UAF Film Archives has started using a YouTube page, which you can easily find, and putting their materials out that way, and then I believe some of those are linked back here. In this collection, there are a lot of oral histories, and many of them are standalone, and then some of them have been linked from the Oral History Department's Project Jukebox. And here's an example of that. And if you, a lot of the materials that are put in this architecture will show this axis, this item, and that's because the software that drives this is designed basically for photographs, and anything that's not a photograph is going to show up this way. And I'll show you some more examples of those. We have quite a number of books that we've been putting in the collection, and I'm going to look for just rare books. And this collection is kind of an artificial collection that we've put together here at the State Library of books from our collections, and I'm not going to open one because they're quite large, even though we've done them as reduced PDFs. But check some of these out. They're really gorgeous reproductions of books on a lot of different topics. What we did was a survey of the oldest materials in our collections, and we'll put those online. And then there's another aspect of our book effort that's Alaska Native language materials. And if you'll search in here on the new website that I'll tell you more about, there will be a link to these in particular. But these are materials that were done mostly in the late 1970s and early 80s in all of the native languages. We've been doing a survey of these materials in our own collections and in the university collections, and making them available as PDFs. These are a fabulous resource. So on this, we've been partnering with the Native Language Archives at the University of Fairbanks. So that's something well worth looking at. And then if you do just a general search in here, most of the materials you're going to find are going to be photographs. There are approximately 50,000 photographs that have been digitized and put online from all of the partner organizations. Now let me stop there a minute and see if anybody has any questions. I haven't really been watching the little chat window. Scott, is there anything I should be aware of?
Well, I think you're doing fine. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear you well. But there haven't been any questions so far, but we could open it to the floor for questions.
Okay. Well, one of the things that that Scott had asked me to talk about is how to use these materials, and every one of the institutions is going to have their own access. Now here's one. I love this little piece from from Seton Carr's sketchbook. If, for instance, you wanted to how many rare books? I think there are only 40 or 50 that we have online at this point, although we are doing more. If any of you are interested in the process, we are using a scanner called a Bookeye 3 that's an overhead book scanner. That the magic in the machine actually is in the way it processes your PDF or whatever the derived files are. So we're able to do some really nice work with it. And we're continuing to do not only rare books, but photo albums and a lot of different kinds of material that are fragile and otherwise would be difficult to scan on a flatbed. So if you want to use a piece of material in an exhibit, the way these images typically are posted online is that what we're looking at here is a display quality JPEG. This will be something that's 72 inches, or rather 72 dpi, and so it's typically about 720 dots wide. They're fairly small, they load fast, and they're totally acceptable for PowerPoint presentations. Even a publication, if it's being reproduced small, they'd be fine. And the consortium really intends that the public will use these for education and research. So what will happen is that at the bottom of the metadata, well, I should probably talk about this metadata a little bit. These are all hot linked, and probably it's not mysterious to anybody, but if you go to a location, for instance, you're going to get lots more Yakutat than if you go to, for instance, a creator, and here's Fuki Kayamori who did this photograph, then you'll be taken to just his materials. So you find something that you want to use, like this kind of perplexing picture of a nurse teaching toothbrushing. It's part of a really great photo collection. If any of you don't know the Kayamori photos, go take a look. So we want to use it. There's a field down here called ordering and use, and each institution has a different way of contacting them. Sometimes it's just an email, but I'll show you a couple of them. This one is going to take you to a page on the state site that begins up with a talk about the copyright that's involved in these. And go ahead and read all this documentation. Really, we at the State Library is expecting the users to take final responsibility for any copyright infringement that might happen. Not all of the images that are on this site are fully in the public domain. Many of the older materials published before 1923 are, but we've given you some real good links to resources here, and the one I did want to show you is at Stanford University. There's an excellent discussion about the meaning of public domain, the fair use clause in the copyright law. So if there's any of you that need more information about that, I'd say try here first. It's really good material. In fact, on that subject, I think I have a link I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can just take you to it. I'll show you this whole resource first, but this is one of the Library of Congress's projects that has an excellent statement about the expectation Library of Congress has for the use of materials for education and research. So let's see, I was showing you what to do if you want to use a photograph, and you follow this page. And if you have found that that you are able to use the small display image that you downloaded, come down here to this. And I think if I open it, you won't see it because we're only looking at the browser window. But anyway, there's a form there that we request that you send to us, and that's all that's required. That way we have a record of how it's being used, and you have a record of where it came from. But if you need a larger version of an image, go to this document here, and actually, you know what? I think if I copy this link, and if I pop it in right here, you'll be able to see the order form. No, it's going. I'm sorry, it's going to want to download it separately. But nevertheless, it's a very simple form. Generally speaking, the fee structure that we have here at the State Library, there's a service fee of $25 for delivery of a high-resolution image. But there are lots of caveats to that, and you all are at the kinds of institutions that we work with on a little different basis. And I have, if you bear with me just a minute, I'm going to change my application sharing for a minute. And see if I can bring you this this document. There. Scott, can you see this document on your screen? That's that's our.
Yes, I can see it.
Waiver fee.
That's good.
Yeah, and you don't have to memorize this or anything. I just wanted you to know this is available. I'll send this to any of you, but it outlines what our authority is for these fees and what they are. And here are some of the requirements for when we do a waiver. But generally speaking, we're anxious to work with other institutions who are doing exhibits or publications. So I'll get rid of that.
Jim, why don't we take a couple of questions now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do.
Okay. One of the questions is from Margaret, and she wanted to know how many books one could find in VILDA.
You know, probably really only 40 or 50. However, since we've been active in this program, we have we've taken user requests very seriously as a part of our criteria for the books, the materials that we digitize. We're currently in a program of making available online more textual documents, including books. So we're doing a lot of manuscript materials. But if there are books that you're finding in the State Library catalog that you think are outside of copyright and you'd like to see full copies of, write to me about it. We'd, we'll see whether we can put those into production to get them digital.
Okay, and our next question is from Penelope, and referencing the images on VILDA, is metadata embedded in the image?
It is not. The metadata is all external to the image. What we've done in lieu of that, Penelope, is that our images are all kept, and this is true actually across the consortium. they're all kept with what we call logical identifiers, and so I've got one up on the screen, this Sky Mori photo. The identifier is this number right here, and so that's what we save those as, and then let me show you. This is the metadata that has been done by hand for each photo, and yeah, I'm going to go to this catalog link, and now I'm in the catalog record for that photograph collection. Now I've got to go to the finding aid, and I'll again, you won't see it if I open it up, but each of these photo collections has an inventory, either to a more or less complete. Some are entirely described at an item level, and some are more at a file level. But that's where the metadata is kept. So in these images that are actually online, descriptions, authors, places, and dates, and so on, have been brought into this individual record. But in nearly every case, these are very small portions of the actual collections. So we're always relying on our traditional collection description methods to supply the full metadata. There is another twist on this as well, that if I right-click on this image and I'm going to save this image to my computer because I want to use it, in a PowerPoint or something, what it'll do, I guess you see that on the screen, it saves it with a very helpful title of getimage.ext.jpg. So what I encourage people to do is actually highlight this and copy the identifier and save it for your own use as that identifier. Daniel, is what I'm doing on screen showing up?
Yes, I can see it. It's showing up. Yeah.
It is happening. Okay. So that's generally speaking what I do, and that way then you have the image with the identifier, and then it's easy to locate the rest of the data, either through us or through the finding aids that are published.
So Karen had a question. She wanted to know whether any other organizations have contributed books as well. The only thing that I'm aware of at the moment, actually, I know that at UAA, pardon me, does have actually I think they have 3 overhead book scanners in the library. I'm not aware of any of those being online. We are working with the UAS here in Juneau to digitize more of the native language teaching books. No, beyond that, I don't think. There are other textual materials. I think I can just show you quickly. I'm just going to do a search on text, and better yet, let me show you an advanced search in this thing. Go to selected fields, material type, I think is down here. There it is. So in here, I'm not going to do an exact phrase. I'm just going to do a word, and that's reading from the type. And so it looks like there are 400 items in here, and you can go through and see which are text-based materials. But I'm not aware of any other full books, and I'm delighted to hear that there's interest in books, because it's been sort of my hobby horse for the last year to get these more books scanned. We have a great deal in the collection that are outside of copyright, and it's just a matter of our allocating the time to do them. Well, any more questions about what we've seen so far? If not, I'll move on to the next thing I wanted to show you. This software, I'm going to go back home and show you, is powered by Content DM. Now, Content it's an object-oriented
web architecture that was developed at the University of Washington, I think maybe 15 years ago. And I'll click on their link and see where, yeah, there we go. They were purchased by a company called, the software called Demima, which ran it for a long time and added the DM, so it's content digital media. And they've since been acquired by OCLC, the bibliographic utility. So they're part of the huge library monopoly, which includes WorldCat. And they have been doing new releases. This page that you're seeing now was a page that was designed for the VILDA consortium 10 years ago when we began this project. So we're going on to a new release of the software. We really expect it to happen within the next couple of weeks. And this is what it'll look like. It's the page is probably looking a little bit funny in this browser window. And we're still trying to make adjustments to the template. And the materials that are delivered are going to be identical. We just migrate the entire database. But the look of the site is going to be quite a bit different, and the way it actually functions has been tweaked quite a bit. Just going to do a quick search. In here, and it looks like, yeah, it must be my spelling of Atna. Now, you see I got no results, and I just fell into the first trap I was going to show you about. This new architecture is all about refining your search. And so what happened was that over here it says new search, and let me see the. Well, yes, and Daniel, on the old page, that's true. In fact, one of the things is that it sometimes you don't even see, depending on which browser, you can hardly even see what you're typing. Long names, yeah. Well, let me get into that as a part of the search. There is a truncation marker that you can sometimes you can use that. Every search utility has a truncation marker of some kind. And the one I did, you'd get house and houses, and if you did like this, you'd get house, houses, and housing, and so on. So that's a useful thing to do, particularly if you're not sure how a name might be spelled in a database, to start out with something that's sound. I'm going to take you back home here to the home page, and so I'm going to search for horses. And incidentally, what you should all know about searching in here is that what you're searching for are subject terms, and the thesaurus that we use for subject terms in these collections. I'll go ahead and do this search. I'll show you. It's the thesaurus for graphic materials. If we look at this here, you'll probably see that here, horses. So an indexer had by hand named horses, and these are typically plural. So you have to remember to either use an S in them or use an asterisk. But what will happen here then is that you can refine your search by looking in. You can remove the collections you don't want to look at, or you can just do, so if I go here to carts and wagons, now we're only going to have things that have here horses and carts and wagons, and we didn't get any, which is sort of impossible to believe. But oh yeah, I inadvertently stumbled on one of the weaknesses of this system. I'd forgotten all about it. It doesn't, it's a bug, and the manufacturer knows about it, but it won't search on an ampersand. So this is kind of a nightmare for all of us, and hopefully that'll get repaired quickly. This, you know, if you want to copy the if you're interested, the URL that's at the top of the page, this is the test instance. It's live. You can check it out if you want. But it should be pretty soon. As soon as we get most of the bugs out of this, then it'll be going live. The other thing I should show you about it is that the partners are all listed down the side here. Beginning, I wanted to show you particularly the Museum of the North. Because their collections are pretty wonderful. They have a lot of material online. The State Library has a small collection too, but the principal access to the State Library's collections are through their catalog, as I think is true of the Museum of the North. But there are quite a number of things that are in the digital archives, so that's a great resource. So let me show you a couple of other things, unless there are any more questions about this quirky interface.
Well, Penelope wanted you to try Horses Dora.
Oh, okay. Dora. Let me just start with Dora. And Penelope, who's Dora? Because I know Dora Sweeney, we have a large collection. Oh, and there's the SS Dora. So let's do it again. But you see this little thing right here? Anything, okay, so we did Dora, so now we can do horses. So I'm still trying to get used to this. It's searching within those results. So now we have a few things. Here it is, landing horses from the SS Dora. Oh. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'm guessing then if we went back in here, I'm going to go back to here, that if we did ships, then it's going to be within these results, so we're going to have only the things where it's the SS Dora. Okay, and then we could probably refine that a little further if we wanted to. Sure, we could. We could say we're seeing that they're from the Anchorage Museum, so we could start eliminating any of the others, and then pretty soon we'd be just down to that collection, something like that. Okay, well that's pretty interesting to see her. And then what else have we got? We have this journal that must refer to some of the same subject matter. Well, I see my little pointer is quivering like crazy, so I think maybe I've overtaxed my computer or something. You know, I bet what it is that we're trying to open up a PDF. Yep. I'm just going to let everything catch up for a minute. So, there we go. Okay, and it looks like this this PDF journal. Yeah, it's all been entered. This is really pretty fascinating. When so there is a journal. online. What they did with this one is they entered the PDF as the object. And what we've been doing here at the State Library is we've been uploading just a picture of the cover or the title page of a book, and then linking that back to our website where we have PDFs. This architecture will do this, but as you can see, it's I think it's a poorer way to present documents. So, but you find them both ways in here. And since these are coming from all over the state, you do see a kind of a mixed bag, both of content and design. Alaska Magazine. I'm going to go back to home. I don't think so.
Jim, you'll have to note that if it's in blue, that's Danita talking to you, and I don't know if everybody can see it, so you'll have to repeat the question.
Oh, okay. Right, well, Danita's asking whether we have any Alaska Magazine, and I think that all that material is copyrighted material, and I don't believe we put any of it online. I just did a search on Alaska Magazine, but I don't think... Oh, here we go. Yeah. I think that just happened to work that way. Yeah, I don't believe so.
And Daniel Osborne also had a question when you get a chance.
Yeah, about the AMpersand. Yeah, what'll happen, Daniel, is that an AMpersand just won't search at all. It's just a design bug, and yet what you'll find is if you get yourself a result that has, here we go, here's a subject term of business and finance. In the new interface, at least until the manufacturer gets it fixed, that hot link won't work. So what you'd want to do is search it and just take the ampersand out, and then it should work fine. So it's an embarrassing situation. But
and Daniel was also interested if there were other flaws like that.
Probably dozens of them. All software has them. We've been talking to the manufacturer about it, but they don't really make any any claims. Actually, the thing that we can control is well, actually, a great deal of functionality of the page is within our control, and our web designers are working on the things that we can. But no, that's the only really desperate fatal flaw that I'm aware of.
And Karen had a question. Is there any way to learn what is being added, what collections are being worked on, what collections are incomplete, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. The best way actually is to let me see if I can show you. In this new structure, we have all of the institutions are named down the side. If you go to any one of them, then when you search, you're searching just within that collection, which is either good or bad, depending. And on the right side, there are recent additions and all these things. This happens to be a static collection because it's not live, so these won't change. But when the new interface is up, then the newest things that have been added will just appear here magically. So that's kind of an interesting way to keep up with new things. There also is a way of searching that I don't think I can show you right now, where you can search by the newest materials, and there's some interest in having that shared on the front page. But the other way, I'm going to look, for instance, into this collection, because this is a David Brower collection. It's all Barrow material. It's pretty wonderful. So if you come across here to the collection name, now that's going to search everything that was in the collection, and it gave us 108 results. But I'm going to go back into it and then go to the catalog record. And then again, like I was showing you, within the catalog record there is a finding aid. And actually the record should give us an idea of, I'm not seeing the scope note here yet. there it is. So 62 photographs. So it looks like we found there must be more than 62 because there are more online. But if you will look at the finding aid, then that'll give you a sense of what's in the collection. And I should have said long ago that there's a tiny part of all of our materials. There must be several million photographs held within these 3 institutions, and yet there are only 50,000 that are fully described and available online after 10 years of really intensive work on the program. So it's a slow process to put these in at this type of level. Well, I know that Scott does not want us to run over, so let me leave all of this stuff here, if that's all right, and show you a couple of other things. The Library of Congress, let me see if I can get to this here. This Meeting of Frontiers is a collection that LC has been working on. They went live in 1999, so it's kind of the older brother of the VILDA consortium, and a number of the Alaskan institutions have contributed to it. It's a huge and perplexing site. There's just a lot of material in it. But I encourage any of you to look. These are all primary documents from both sides of the water about the entire relationship between Russian exploration, anything dealing with Russia and America, and it's great stuff. And I'm just going to go into a couple of these things and show you how to access. Many of these materials are available in full resolution. Right here we can look at a photo reproduction. Here's that statement about rights that I was showing you. And I'm not seeing it here, so it's not everything, but many of them, there is a button where you can get a high resolution image right then and there. So this is a collection that's really worth taking a look at. And there is, as I say, here's some rare books here too, rare books from Siberia, so you might want to look in this collection. And I think I'd wanted to show you from the VILDA collection how you get materials from UIA. Is there? I go to their page. Some archives. There we go. This is where you'd contact them, and then if you're had a question, let me pop this in. You can contact the archives directly with this question, and I noticed that they use this ReCAPTCHA as a way of proving that you're not a spam robot. And no doubt a lot of you have encountered these, and I thought that if you didn't know about this ReCAPTCHA, you might be interested in it, because it's when we digitized books, or as for instance in the digital newspaper program, which the state library, the whole state of Alaska is hoping to participate in this year. You scan this material and you use optical character recognition, but it isn't perfect, and there's a lot of work that has to be done by human beings, and that's what this ReCAPTCHA is all about. So that when you go in here and you type in the 2 words specified, and then you're going to type in ENTEDQUI, is that what it says? And then I'm going to submit it. What this actually is it's Google trying to get a human's idea about what this says. so that then they can pop that in a book. And I'm going to show you a site that tells you more about ReCAPTCHA, how it's used, and what it's doing. So when I first learned about this, I didn't know whether to be mad or applaud, because it's amazing. Somehow all of those words are linked back to a digital copy of a book that Google Books is trying to decipher. Looks like there are some questions here. Oh yes, there will be an RSS feed. And Margaret, what about the period? Okay, all right. Well, are there any questions or anything any of you would like to talk about before we close up? Looks like we have a few more minutes. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to meet with you. I think I'll just stay on here until noontime comes. Let's see. Penelope's got a question. Addison, this is a great question about becoming a partner organization. What I suggest is if any of you have some materials that you'd like to be sharing here, whether they're museum objects or documents, photographs, you just contact either myself here at the State Library or Arlene Schmollen at UAA, or you can contact Bob Forshaw at UAF, or just come talk to me and maybe I could put you in touch with the right organization. We do have a protocol, and there is some funding commitment that's required at this point, but it's very reasonable, and we're really interested in having materials from other institutions around the state. The Russian American site. Let me find
Hey
that.
Jim, I popped that into the chat window.
Right. Oh, you did already for the Meeting of Frontiers?
Yes.
Marvelous.
And then Margaret asked what kind of promotional material or activity is available for VILDA. We've done lots of promotional work in the past, bookmarks and things like that, and there really isn't much going on right now. But as far as activity, I don't really have an answer for you. But what it brings to my mind is that what is sorely needed in Alaskan education is more curriculum materials, and there are some really good materials that have linked to the VILDA materials. There's the Alaska, what is it called? Then you remember the Alaska history. Let me see if I can bring it up. Alaska history course, Jim?
Yeah, should be Alaska history and culture. There you go. This uses a lot of materials from VILDA, and it has some really great units. And I know that there are some teaching materials that have been developed in the Meeting of Frontiers. That's all based on primary source material. And in my opinion, that's the greatest need the greatest unmet need at this point is for finished teaching materials that teachers can use directly. And so if any of you have ideas about that or any other kind of partnerships that we can do, I hope you'll let us know.
And Margaret had a question about usage stats.
Oh yeah, there on this page there is a stats page. In fact, I think it's just called. And oh yeah, then you. Yeah, I didn't realize it was password protected, but we can easily get into those stats and supply them, and then we've been collecting them at a institutional level as well. So if you're interested, Mark, I can get you that basic stats package. But there is a fairly refined usage stats package that comes with this. You know, as with all internet statistics, it can be a little perplexing because, well, because so much of that world is has to do with domains. You know, so we can tell where things are referred from. I know it's way over my head. I know Daniel understands it better than I do.
And it looks like from the chat window that we might have a few more questions.
Okay.
There are general trends on the statistics?
Well, one interesting little factoid is that, as I was saying, UAF Film Archives has begun moving from this platform to YouTube, and they have only 200 bits of motion picture film, but during February, during I think the first 20 days of February, they had 50,000 hits on those 20. So they're finding that for moving image material, that's a much broader platform, and I believe they are leaking back this direction. But no, I don't know that. I'm sure there are some general trends that I should be able to speak to, but I can't say. I do know that our effort here has been to broaden the kinds of materials that we're putting out. That's why we're working with books and pamphlets and that kind of text material. All right. Well, let's turn it back over to Scott. Well, Daniel, I'm not hearing Scott come online, so I wonder if maybe he's been bounced off.
Oh dear. Hey Jim, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, sorry, I had the wrong button, but Scott had to leave for another appointment, so he left me to go ahead and wrap up. And I was just wondering if Penelope had a question, because I see her chat box active. And we probably have time for just one more question. Okay, can I get you to stop your application sharing for a moment? Because I need to share the date of the next web chat. We really want to thank you all. I've definitely learned some new things here, and hopefully you all have too. And our next chat session is going to be on April 11th. So on behalf of Scott, the Alaska State Museums, and the Alaska Historical Collections, thank you so much for coming to this web chat. And I'm going to stop recording now. Take care and goodbye.
Yeah, thank you all.